Hi guys, we're back. Okay, what we're going to try to do right now is this is going to be the video that I record and stick on YouTube to teach new material. Okay, we're going to be talking about a normal distribution probability. All right, you don't have to even watch this till after your test. So we've been doing probabilities. Now we're going to talk about probabilities with distributions that are normal, just like we've been doing before, normal curves, that normally distributed with the mean in the middle, that's symmetric on both sides, okay? So the word problem would actually have to say that the data is normally distributed and then ask you to find a probability for you to do this, okay? So we're gonna kind of start out talking about with IQ scores because that's familiar to you. Now I've got a whiteboard ordered, but Amazon's a little backed up with shipping right now. So we're going to kind of see if we can do it kind of with some PowerPoints. The lovely thing is, you can freeze, back up, do this, and watch it as many times as you want to. So we'll see how this goes. Okay, let's see if I can share my PowerPoint with you. Okay, so you should see me in the upper right-hand corner, and then I'm going to kind of show you the slides and explain the slides as I go. Okay, so this is for normal distribution probabilities. All right, now what you're going to do first basically is this. These are going to be kind of the steps, okay? If they ask you to find a distribution that's normal and ask you to find a probability, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to draw a picture. So when I say draw a picture, I'll do one in just a second. You'll see a normal curve. All right, remember what goes in the dead center of the normal curve is the mean, and you're going to shade the area that you're looking for because the area is going to be exactly the same thing as the probability. Okay, you'll see in a second, so the area matches the probability. Now, you have to draw the picture. If you draw the picture in shade, you'll be fine. If you don't draw the picture in shade, you won't be fine. Then the calculator is going to do all the work for you. This is your dream come true. So you're going to go to second VAERS, and right at the top, there's going to be a normal PDF and a normal CDF. Sort of like we did binomial PDF and CDF, only this is great. You're only going to use normal CDF. You're never going to use normal PDF. So do make sure you're on the right one. So second VAERS, normal CDF. Now when that parenthesis opens, you're going to write down the first thing is the left endpoint on the shading and a comma. Now remember that comma is right above your 7. Then you're going to put the right endpoint on your shading and a comma. Then you're going to write down the mean and a comma and the standard deviation. And then you're going to close the parenthesis. Now that parenthesis closing is above that 9 key. Okay? So when I say left and right endpoints, I mean on the shading. And that answers your probability. The calculator does all the work. If they were to ask you for a percentage instead of a probability, you would just multiply that probability by 100 to get the percentage. Okay, so you can, freeze that and look at that again later. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Look at this problem. IQ scores are normally distributed with a mean of 100 and a standard deviation of 15. And I would tell you the mean and standard deviation. Okay, what's the probability that a randomly selected person has an IQ between 95 and 110? Okay, so notice, I'm going to kind of get a pointer here. Notice that I drew the picture, okay? The mean is 100, it's in the middle. So it said between 95 and 110, so that's going to be my left endpoint and my right endpoint. It said between, so that's why I shaded between 95 and 110. All right, so this is the way I'd want your work on a test. So you have normal CDF, that 95 is your left endpoint on your shading, that 110 is your right endpoint on your shading, that 100 is the mean for IQs, and then remember 15 is the standard deviation for IQs. When you type all that and hit enter, I just rounded to 4 decimal places. That is your answer, and you are finished. See, Jesus loves you. It doesn't get any easier than this, okay? Now, look at this. There are a couple of times you're going to have to what I call fool the calculator, okay? So let me stop that for a second and change slides for you, okay? Now here's what I mean by fool the calculator. Sometime on your shading, you're going to be missing your right endpoint, and sometimes on your shading, you're going to be missing your left endpoint. So if you're missing your right endpoint, you're just going to get a ridiculously big number. I just usually do a bunch of 9s. Now I just put 6, but I mean, you can put 4 or 5, you know, it doesn't really matter. It's a ridiculously big number. If you're missing the left endpoint, you need a ridiculously small number. A lot of times you can use 0, but you know, let's say I'm efficient rather than lazy. So instead of doing positive with a bunch of 9s, I just do negative with a bunch of 9s. Now do remember that that negative key on your calculator is different than that minus key. So make sure that you're using the negative key and not the minus. Now let me show you what I mean by that. All right, look at these two problems. This one says, find the probability that a random person has an IQ greater than 125. Okay, so notice what I've done. I've drawn my normal curve. The mean is 100. It's in the center. And then it said greater than 125. So that's why I shaded to the right on 125. Okay, but look at my shading. I've got a left endpoint, but see, I'm missing a right endpoint. So when I do normal CDF, I put my left endpoint of 125, then a ridiculously big number. I mean, nobody's got an IQ above like 900,000. Okay, so a ridiculously big number, and there's your mean, and there's your standard deviation. Hit enter, and I round it again to 4 decimal places. I'm finished. Okay, look at this one. Probability that a person's got an IQ below 90. All right, so remember the mean's in the middle. 90's to the left because 90's smaller than 100. It said below, so that's why I shaded to the left on this one. So notice, see, now I've got a right endpoint, but no left endpoint. So when I went up here to do normal CDF, I put a negative and a bunch of 9s. You know, nobody's going to have a negative IQ score no matter how, you know, challenged we are. So left endpoint on your shading, right endpoint on your shading, your mean and your standard deviation, and then there's your answer. All right. Now notice, if it wanted a percentage of people, then I would just take that and multiply by 100, which would give me like 25.25%. Okay. All right. So let's kind of look at a couple of more out of your book. Okay. You're going to be on page 251 if you like to, you know, open your book, but I kind of just copied it for you. All right. We're going to do something that's not an IQ score. All right. Males and females, it's going to tell you in the directions their distance between from their back to their knee when they're sitting. All right, like when you're sitting in a chair from your back out to your knee, if you took a ruler and measured that, that's normally distributed, but you know, men and women are different heights, so it's different numbers for men and women. So notice, males have an average of 23.5 inches. Females, that average distance is smaller, so 22.7. Okay, 22.7. There's the standard deviations that tell you it's normally distributed. So we're going to work number 14. Find the probability that a female has a back to knee length greater than 24 inches. So make sure that you're using the female row when you do this. All right, so look what I did. I drew my normal curve. That 22.7 is the mean for females. All right. It wanted to know the probability that they were greater. It was greater than 24 inches. So I put 24 and I shaded to the right because it was greater. So 24 is my left endpoint, but I'm missing my right endpoint. So remember, we're going to have to fool the calculator. So normal CDF, 24 is my left endpoint on my shading, a bunch of 9s to fool the calculator for my right endpoint. That's the mean, 22.7 for females. And that 1's the standard deviation for females. Get all that typed in, hit enter, and there's your probability. Okay, see, simple, simple. Okay, look at another one. All right, this time we're talking about men's and women's heights being normally distributed. And we're going to work number 22. So it says the U.S. Air Force requires that pilots have heights between 64 and 77 inches. So this time on A, it doesn't say find the probability, it says find the percentage. But you do it the same way with one extra step. Okay, we're going to find the probability, and then to change from the probability to the percentage, we're going to multiply by 100 at the end. All right, so page 251 still, heights between 64 and 77. Okay, so look what I did. I drew my normal curve. Okay, remember what's in the dead center is the mean, so that's the mean for men, okay, in the directions. It wanted the probability they were between 64 inches and 77 inches. 64 is smaller than the mean, so it's on the left. 77 is bigger, so it's on the right. And I shaded between them because it said between. So normal CDF, there's my left endpoint, my right endpoint, 68 6/10 is my mean, 2 8/10 is my standard deviation. I hit enter. Now remember, what comes off the calculator is a probability. So if they had said, what's the probability that a man's between 64 and 77 inches, I would be finished. I would just put 0.9484 and be done. But it didn't say that. It said, what's the percentage of men? So to change from probability to percentage, you just take your probability and multiply by 100. So the answer there would be 94.84%. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some homework on Moodle on normal distribution probabilities, and you work on those. The answers will be in the back as usual. If you're getting the right answers, life is good. You may not need me. Okay? But if you're not getting the right answers, or you just want to check in to get some more problems worked, or just to make yourself feel better, then you can go to those Zoom meetings. Okay, but just like in class, if you're getting the answers right, life is great. If you're not, we're not going to panic. You're going to email me. You can always snap pictures of your work and send them to me, or you can wait to a Zoom meeting, your choice. All right, so go to Moodle, be looking for that homework, and then, but you can do that all after your test on Thursday if you want to. All right, bye.